I'm going to talk a little bit about the pools. You mentioned PHUX, the Alex Hedron Maxi pool. What do people need to understand about these pools on PHUX, especially like the ones where they have multiple coins, to balance or fork instead of swap, all that stuff. But what does that mean? And I know there's you just want to talk about that. And isn't there like a coin that represents different pools and stuff too that can be traded?
Yeah. So PHUX, like you said, is a fork of Balancer V2. And the main difference between Balancer and, say, a Uniswap, which is what the tech that PulseX is created from, is that instead of only having a single asset pools or 2 asset pools where each asset is paired against each other 50-50 according to dollar value, you can have up to 8 assets in a PHUX pool, and you can customize the weighting of those assets in any way that you want. So here for the Alex Maxi pool, you can see that there are 5 assets: P Hedron, P HEX, E Hedron, and then both of the ICOSAs. And so when you put in money into this pool, you are owning a basket of you're owning these 5 assets in the proportions laid out in the weight column that you see right there. So this creates kind of a pseudo index fund that you can DCA into with fresh money. So just say like you only have P HEX. If you were to put it into the pool, it would sell some of it for the other ones to make sure that your proportion is equivalent to those weightings. And so I've been enjoying using these pools lately. One, because the APRs have been pretty significant. I mean, just by putting your tokens here, you're getting between 90 and 220% APR, which is pretty crazy. Now, that is paid mostly in the PHUX token, but still, that's pretty significant for just holding the tokens, especially because that's probably paying out more than natively staking your Hedron and ICOSA right now.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, is that competing with? How much has that competed with, or will compete with Hedron as of now versus even V2?
As of right now, it's definitely out competing it. The volume is down on the HSI auction, which is the main thing that fuels the yield for the native staking pools, which I think is fine. It's just in a period where because HEX isn't valuable, all these other things aren't valuable as well, like Hedron and ICOSA. And so it's going to take a little bit of time for the system to ramp up again and get some major activity. But the byproduct of that is that there is no new inflation coming out in the system in terms of new yield being generated, which is a good thing. But for the PHUX pool, you can still earn significant yield by staking your Hedron, mostly Hedron tokens. Like the ICOSA is pretty negligible. So if you bring in a bunch of PICOSA, what you're really doing is selling it for those other assets. But you're bringing in a bunch of those assets, and you're able to earn the PHUX token at a pretty high APR, which I think is pretty significant.
So I'm completely new to this PHUX. So let's say I've got P Hedron and P HEX. I don't have the other 3 tokens. Mm-hmm. Can I add those into the pool, or do I have to buy the other 3 as well and add them all in together?
Nope, you can add 1 or 2 or 3 of the assets, and it'll auto balance it for you by selling what you need to sell within that pool and buying the other ones to make sure the weights are the same. So like if you scroll up, Max, if you scroll up, oh, you don't have a wallet connected. Do you have a dummy wallet right now?
I do not. Don't have one to connect for it.
Okay, let me see if I can pull it up on my screen then.
Yeah, that's really cool. Because I think I looked at this and then I saw like these different pools, and they have like, some of them have like 10 tokens, or they've got a lot of tokens in it. It seemed like a lot of work that I have to go out and buy all these tokens. But if I can just put in the ones that I have, then that's really cool.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me get this up.
And just to clarify too, the main difference too between staking and LPing here, you sort of touched on it too, Sloth, is you're earning the APR in the PHUX token versus if you're staking in the app.icosa.pro with Hedron or ICOSA, you're earning the actual Hedron ICOSA back, right?
Yes, correct. So this one, you're earning the PHUX token and a little bit of fees associated with that, which are paid in those tokens that are being swapped with. But that's pretty negligible. Like if you look over here, where is it? If you look here, only 2% of the APR is composed of the fee swap. So most of the APR in your income is from the PHUX token. And then also the difference between the min and the max. So like the difference between getting 88 or 220% depends on how much PHUX you have, which is how much you have of your PHUX you have locked up in this prime PHUX pool. But going to Dev Huey's question, if you go to add liquidity, and let's say I only have P Hedron, say I have 1 billion of this. That's 100 million, 1 billion. And then I have, which is crazy, 188 bucks. That's wild. And then I have, let's say 50,000 of this, right? It'll, so it exceeds my wallet balance because I don't have anything in here, but it'll auto adjust this and sell them into these assets. And then you'll see the price impact within that pool is 0.8%. If you start adding a bunch of one token to it, it's going to start tell you that you're going to see a lot of slippage because what's happening is a trade in the background. Like you're trading your P Hedron for the E Hedron, ICOSA, P ICOSA, and a little bit of PHEX because this is the most amount of money that you're depositing right now. So that's the main thing to consider, but it'll tell you, and then you'll be providing it within these proportions in the pool, and then you'll be earning this APR in the PHUX token. And so it's like I said, it's like a pseudo index fund, especially if you consider that the impermanent loss is more spread out now, because you have more assets that are kind of mitigating against impermanent loss, and especially with assets like these, all of them generally are probably going to be moving together. So yeah, this is a pretty solid pool to be in terms of mitigating against impermanent loss because all of them are pretty intimately tied together. And then especially a pool like the RHMaxi pool where, pretty much all of these are moving up together. And if you don't really believe in, say, like EHEX or INC, it's only 15% of the pool. So it weighing the dollar value of your position down in terms of impermanent loss is limited to 15% of your position rather than 50-50 rather than 50-50.
Yeah, I still like on PulseX though, doing the pools that are, the pools that are each other, either Pulse and PulseX or PulseX and Inc or Pulse and Inc, that kind of stuff. In this system, it seems like you're betting on, the permanent loss is sort of more spread around and stuff, but also you're earning Inc. I guess if you're doing the RHMaxi on PHUX, are you just betting that PHUX's price is going to go up more than Inc? Or I don't know. I guess what factors in the decision between using the two platforms with the RHMaxi tokens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, the APRs are different. So for the PulseX, I believe the APR is like 15-16%, something like that. And so just by the current prices that they are right now, 12%. It's 12% right now, and then the Hex Pulse is 18%. So just based on the current prices, if you're selling your yield fairly consistently, the PHUX pool is paying out more right now from that perspective. Now,
you got the big 12% from that one, but also you got 70% for the Inc pools. Yeah.
So in those Inc pools, you are taking a little bit more risk on them with the PLX and Pulse and the Hex and Wrap Pulse LP, just because Inc is a more volatile asset because of its emission rate, and the fact that people get it and dump it a lot. So it's a pretty volatile one. So the impermanent loss in either direction is going to be a little bit more severe versus it being cut off right here. Now there is one big difference between the two places, and that is the amount of liquidity that there is. So there's $22 million of liquidity in PulseX Pulse, and there's 15 million in Hex Wrap Pulse. But here the pool only has 3 million. So your ability to enter and provide a ton of liquidity in the PHUX pool, if you're only bringing one asset, is fairly limited, just because of the amount of liquidity that's there. So if you're a big Pulse sacrificer, not a big PulseX sacrificer, or not a big PHEX holder, you're not going to be able to get in a lot of your tokens. Versus with the PulseX pool, you'll be able to swap more of your Pulse tokens into PulseX in order to enter that liquidity pool. The slippage is lower. So that I would say actually that's one main big difference, is that not the volume, but the liquidity is much lower, so it makes it harder for larger players to enter. where was I going with that? But if you're spreading your coins out amongst different LP pools in the farms, it does kind of make it similar to the PHUX pool in a way. I think I don't know if the impermanent loss works out exactly the same, but for all intents and purposes, like if I was advising somebody, it kind of works out the same. So it just depends on, do you want to accumulate the PHUX token or do you want to accumulate the ink token over time? Kind of like what your question was getting at, Max. For me, I kind of gear more towards the PHUX pool just because of simplicity. So I can take my money, I can just buy a bunch of Pulse, and then I can put it in this pool, and I get all of the assets, rather than having to buy the different assets and then figure out the ratios myself to get it 50-50 to put into the farms in the ink pool. But if I wanted to accumulate more ink, that's what I would be doing. So it's more of a personal choice than a absolute answer, if that makes sense. Sorry, I was a little long-winded there.
There are definitely more clicks. I mean, one day PulseX will it'll be the shining beautiful, perfect thing that we were waiting for 2 years. But right now, there's a lot of clicks to add more stuff. I know, especially when you're recompounding, especially when you're earning ink and you want to turn it back in. Like, okay, now let me do some math. Okay, let me click like 6 buttons and let me confirm 3 times. There's a lot to it, but yeah, definitely like the way the PHUX makes it. Just the fact that you can, it'll auto balance between the assets, and you don't need to buy everything. That makes it cool. Although, there's only 2 assets that you can put up liquidity for on PulseX, but still, there's a lot of cool features that the PHUX provides. That no wonder it's got a lot of volume and pull values and TVL in it right now.
Yep.
So can anybody make a pool like this on PHUX, or is there fixed pools?
Yep. Anybody can make a pool. You can make one right now. And if you go to the pools, Max, and you just start scrolling down, you'll see there's some with like I'm looking at some with like 600, or not, like a couple $1,000, a couple $100 of liquidity down there. So anybody can make a pool with any tokens at any weighting. But the pools that are incentivized are picked by the team, and then the community who has the has the VFUX, the people who have those, they vote on the weighting of those rewards.
So many artists in the community with these names. Don't even know if some of them are. Don't know what some of them. Afraid to ask what some of them mean.
Tang gang.
Wow. Okay, I'm behind on that one. All right.
There it is, Richard versus SEC. Richard Bridge Stablecoin. That's another cool thing, is you can put the liquidity pool token in its own liquidity pool as well. So a lot of people are taking that Bridge Stablecoin pool and using that as the liquidity token within their stuff.